Right, so, as the last of you are taking your seats, we'll just wait for Mel Berry to make her entrance late. Right, so, welcome everybody. Oh, that was interesting. 2 speakers there. Look, you get twice of me. So, welcome everyone to Ingenuity17. This is our conference. This is the first time we've done a conference before. Those of you that have done these events in the past, you'll be able to recognize that we are changing things every year. We're trying to develop things every year. And so we hope you get a lot out of this weekend. So what's going to happen, I'll go through the timetables in a second. Oh, by the way, I'm Steve Chapman. I'm head of the Ingenuity Lab. Probably should have said that. So what I'm going to do a quick intro, and then we're going to crack on with the conference. So, there we go. Technology works. This is good. So what we're going to look at here before we kick off, what's Ingenuity Conference about? Ingenuity17, Session 1, the keynote, and Session 2. I'm also going to talk you through your packs to make sure you've got all of that, you understand what you need to do, and then we'll kick off with some value. So, the Ingenuity Conference, this is what it is. Why are you here? So, you're here simply to identify the key issues you face and understand more about the business idea, working with your peers, industry experts down here at the front. Wave, do something. Good, good. They know what they're talking about. And also academics. We have the Hayden Green Institute academics here as well. I won't ask them to woo because they're a fairly modest bunch. The other key thing here, of course, here in this room, this is part of the entrepreneurial community at the University of Nottingham, okay? And this is important. This is your network. So get to know these people, and we're facilitating ways where you can throughout the day. And the other thing from these 3 days is that you have the skills and the ability to write a good business plan and promote your business, okay? So 3 very key aims. You to understand your business better. You to understand either your new business or existing business, what are the problems you want to face. This is a community of 300 people. You're all entrepreneurs, or you aspire to be entrepreneurs. And then also going forward for the submission of the business plan after this, you'll have the skills to do that. You know what you need to put in, what issues you need to solve, okay? So, you probably can't see this, but in your packs, there'll be lots of rustling of paper. If you haven't seen it already, you'll see the, get myself organised perhaps. This here. So, that's what we need to look at. So today, that's me there in the Great Hall. I'm just going to introduce this. Then we go into the first session. Okay? You've got 3 20-minute speeches and then a Q&A. So what I want you to do while you're listening to people to talk is 2 things. Firstly, have the presentation in front of you. All the presentations are in your packs. Now, all the presentations for the next 2 days are in your packs. If you lose them or leave them at home, we probably don't have enough for all of you, so make sure that you keep those with you. But those presentations are for you when you're listening, when you're watching, to write down questions, to write down notes, to help you contextualize what you're hearing. But the other thing I want you to do while you're doing that is think of questions. So when the 3 20 minutes are up, there'll be a Q&A in these chairs here, and then you'll have a chance to ask questions. Ask the questions you want to ask. Now, bearing in mind, you will probably not have a chance in the day to ask those people the questions that you'll need to ask, so use this time now, okay? After that, you then go into a seminar. So the structure of the first 2 days is quite simple. You're talked at, you go away and contextualize that. You're talked at a bit more, you go away and contextualize that. So that's the structure for the first day. Now, let's go into the second days. So again, Sunday, Saturday, same thing. After lunch, we have a keynote. And then Sunday, this is where it gets quite different. So, on Sunday, in the mornings, you will all be practicing and developing your pitches, all of you as teams. Okay? Then in the afternoons, and I'll explain to you a bit more how we'll do it, we'll then have a top 30 pitches, and then we'll all sit in here. You'll all have an app on your phone to vote, and you guys will vote in 2 sections, basically who the winners are, who the top 6 are. So if you see here, you've got the first 15 are pitching, then the second 15 are pitching. I've just spotted a typo on my own presentation, but you'll get it. And then after that, in front of a panel, there will then be a final 6. Okay. This is not the submission of your final business plan. This is about the best pitch. Okay. This is to give you practice of pitching. So what we're trying to do in this conference is give you value, give you a lot of value. It's not about winning, it's not about prizes, even though they're nice. It's about the value you get out of this conference. So the first 2 days are information. You'll have a huge amount of it thrown at you. You'll then go into your seminars where the mentors will work with you to contextualize that information. And then the Sunday, the second part, is about you pitching, about you understanding how you communicate that. So, units, right. You need to get your head around this. I was as clear as mud with the mentors earlier. So, a unit. You will all be put into units. You have already been put into units. You should know, does anyone not know what unit they're in? Good. Does anyone not know what room they're going to? 1 person, 2 people. Well, that's good, out of all of you. If you don't have one of these, go and ask one of the organisers, the people at the desk, to find out. Okay? Oh, Lizzie, is that you? Lizzie, can you stand up so everyone can see you? The few of you that didn't know, when you're told to go to your seminar groups, then you need to find out where you need to go. Okay? So, a unit. There are 30 units. You are all part of one of those units. Within those units is between 4 and 5 businesses and between 8 and 10 individuals. So we put you together as a group. You're multidisciplinary, you have different experience stages, and the point is, the unit you're put in, you need to stay in it. So the seminars, after the speeches, you will go in, you'll have a set questions to look at related to those seminars, and then you have to work within your units, peer-to-peer mentoring, to understand that fully. Okay? So, peer-based support, 4 to 5 multidisciplinary teams. Now a team can be, the biggest team I think is 5 people, most of the teams are 1 person. So it's going to be a mix. But the idea is, what you don't know, somebody else will, and vice versa. Okay? You're going to work over the next 3 days, help you understand and get the most. And the other thing with the mentors, you'll be assigned a mentor. Okay? Each unit. So what they're going to do is facilitate your peer-to-peer mentoring. So what I want you to do is talk to each other. What I want you to do is share. Now, I can see some of you looking concerned in the audience of, my idea is the best idea in the world and I can't share anyone with it. It may well be, but you all need to have the ability to share your idea without giving away the value. And that's something you need to learn to do at this conference. There's no point going into meetings and you won't say anything without an NDA. You have to be able to pitch your idea without giving away the value. And when you get into these groups are about cooperation. These groups are about working together. This is about you working with your peers for the benefit of all. And that's how the lab works. We're not about crawling over anybody or screwing anyone over. We work together. 1 person's success is everyone's success, and 1 person's failure, we all work together to help them. That's how we work. There's lots of lab members here that may disagree with me, but they're wrong. So, the last thing on the pitch day then, and this is where it gets interesting, and this is why you've got units. The Sunday morning, and you should look at your timetables now if you've got them, you will all, and we'll go over this every morning, so don't worry about retaining it, but you will, as a unit, help each other work on your pitches, and then you need to decide as a unit who your champion is, who the best pitch is. Now, this will require most of you to step back and let someone step forward. But the point of it is, you need to put the person forward you think is most likely to win. Okay? So at the end of Sunday morning, you nominate your champion. And then from the 30 units, we have 30 pitches. The semi-finals are 30 pitches. Just 3 minutes. No PowerPoint, you just talk. And then we vote. And then we have a final 6. There's a panel up here that decide. The winner of that, the winner who wins the best pitch, you and all of your unit get mentoring on your business plan between now and business plan submission, okay? So their win is your win. Help them, it helps you. Yeah? So this is an attempt to make you guys work together, to make you guys share knowledge, and basically the winner of that, all of you, all of the teams, all of the 8 to 10 people, all of the 4 to 5 other businesses, you all get expert mentoring on your business plan between now and submission. So you've all got a vested interest in that, so work together, okay? So, wrong way, right way. Okay, so that is essentially how the conference is going to work. Now let's whet your appetite a little bit. So, our sponsors. I'll talk more tomorrow morning about the Ingenuity Lab and the Hagen Green Institute. One note. Remember, so one person from your team needs to show up every single day. We're keeping a register. If someone doesn't show up, you cannot submit your business plan. I know you've been reminded of this, but someone needs to show up. I would suggest you all show up because there's a huge amount of value. And the other thing is, those people that win will get mentoring, but between end of this conference and the submission, the lab will not give you mentoring. The Hagen Green Institute will not give you mentoring. This is where you get the value, okay? Also, the other thing, remembering this is going on in Ningbo and in Malaysia as well, which is good. So, our sponsors, Hagen Green Institute, that's where the lab sits in. We are the Institute of Innovation and Entrepreneurship, as you can see. The University of Nottingham Business School, where we sit. The Asia Business Centre, who provide a prize. Careers and Employability Service also provide a big prize. BDO, they're supporters of the competition, and they're always also the lab's accountancy and finance partner. Santander Universities support the lab and this competition. Potter Clarkson support the lab and this competition. There's a theme here. Shakespeare Martineau, who we have, where are they? There they are. Also support the lab very much. And then we've got UNIP, who's University of Nottingham Innovation Park. Paragon Law, who are also our immigration partners. And then we have got the Engineer in Business Fellowship, which is another new prize. So they're all the sponsors. This is everyone that's coming together to help you guys, to make this not just the conference, but the whole event a success. So, prizes. The current prize fund is £113,000. Okay? You will meet tomorrow. The keynote is Johnny Prynne, 1/3 Stories. He walked away last year with £35,000 worth of prizes. Also, Mitchell, what did you walk away with last year? 25,000. Mitchell Faciana here, who you'll hear tomorrow. So it's really worth trying to get these prizes. So what are they? We have the Vice Chancellor's Entrepreneurial Award. That's £10,000 cash, which is good. We then have £5,000, £3,000 and £10,000, first, second, third prize. There's £40,000 worth of entrepreneurship grants. I should step out of the way of the screen. The Asia Business Prize, £10,000. Engineering Business Awards, that's three prizes, totaling £3,000. Then we have the in-kind section. Shakespeare Martineau, £10,000. Potter Clarkson, £10,000. BDO, £10,000. Paragon Law have an International Business Mentoring Prize for those guys of you that trade internationally, £5,000. And this is a great prize. The lab sits in the Ingenuity building over on Jubilee. It's basically a unit there, an office for a year, worth £5,000, so that's great. So, they're the prizes. That's what you're playing for, but this conference has value other than that. Don't feel if you're not top 20, don't feel if you're not top 5, that there is no value to it. This is about getting value. This is about understanding as much as you can and making sure that you submit your business plan the best it can be. So, a couple of other quick things. I'll be very quick, we're probably way over time. Tier 1 graduate entrepreneurship visas. Could everyone just raise their hands who's already on a visa in this room? Look at that. Excellent, excellent, excellent. So, Tier 1 visa, not a student visa. Anyway, you get the gist. We have the biggest scheme in the UK. We have 40 new visas a year. It enables you to stay in the UK for another 2 years to start a business, okay? So that's for non-UK, currently non-EU students, okay? You have to apply for that within 12 months of graduation. That's very important, or express your interest. And the way to do that, the links are here. We can put you in touch, but go to the Ingenuity Lab website. It's very easy to find. The next thing then quickly is the Nottingham Advantage Award. So in order to do that, you have to attend the conference, you have to submit a business plan, and you have to do a reflective log, okay? And that's to get the credits to do that. So there's loads online about the Nottingham Advantage Award. So that is that. I'm fairly sure. Ooh, where are we? Okay, so now we're just going to kick straight into session 1. Is there anyone have any burning questions or any issues? Nothing that can wait? Excellent, good. Right, so we're a little bit behind. So as I call out their names, I'm going to welcome the first session on stage. The first session is about, is there a problem worth solving? Okay, so that's testing your ideas, looking at your idea, testing your assumptions, is it the right model? And then identifying the best model solutions. Every single one of these sessions at the end of it is about identifying the models and solutions. At the end of this session, you will have some questions. They will then be when you get downstairs for you to look at. So, without further ado, I'd like to... There you go, it's all there and your link works.
Great, thank you. Okay, everybody, thank you for that warm welcome. So it's my great pleasure to speak to you today. I know I've met some of you before in a classroom setting, and you're thinking, oh no, it's Mosey's going to be banging on about entrepreneurship again. But there's a few things a little bit different for you. And probably something you didn't realise about me is way back in the midst of time when I was an undergraduate student, when sort of dinosaurs were roaming the earth and all that sort of thing was going on. I studied physics, actually, and I made 2 great predictions about the future. One, about my personal career when I was studying physics. 1, I was never going to do a PhD, and 2, I was never going to teach. So here I am, PhD, and a professor in the business school teaching for a living. So why do I say that? Just to show that I know nothing, or I certainly didn't know anything then, about the future. And I'll equally say, nobody does. And I think we should be liberated about that, because what I really want to address are some very pervasive myths about entrepreneurship. You're engaged in entrepreneurship, you're practicing or aspirational entrepreneurs. But we hear about entrepreneurship all the time. It's very fashionable. You've got one-uppreneurs, people out there that want to behave like entrepreneurs but don't actually want to do the work. TV programs about it. And everything you read, there are 2 things that scream out. One is that entrepreneurs can somehow see the future. They're somehow better at seeing the future than we are. So therefore, don't bother engaging in entrepreneurship because you can't see the future. And 2, it's all about the individual. Now, what I see, and my privilege is spending time working with individuals like you, if you see how entrepreneurship really works, you'll see both these are absolute nonsense. If you recognise a very youthful Mark Zuckerberg there, smiling because of the fortune he's about to make, because this is way back when, if you look at what actually happened, I know you've probably all seen the movie The Social Network, you probably use Facebook, I'm sure you're familiar with the concept. Mark Zuckerberg, when he was a student, had no idea of the future of social media. He had no idea that people would be spending hours sharing pictures and Snapchatting and peeking at each other's profiles and all that sort of stuff. But he was fascinated with the possibilities. And he was actively experimenting. He was trying out lots of things. Most of the things he tried were rubbish and didn't work. You don't hear about those. All you hear about is Facebook and what a great success it was. So therefore, wasn't he brilliant? Didn't he see the future? If you look into what actually happened, there's lots of things that catch people by surprise. First and foremost, Mark wasn't a computer scientist, which most people think. He was a psychology student. So he's actually really interested in psychology, human interaction. Second of all, he didn't know what the future was, and he still doesn't. If you look at the way Facebook is behaving now, it's exactly the same as when he started out. It's experimenting. So it's bought Oculus Rift, virtual reality headsets. Is the future of Facebook going to be on virtual reality? I don't know. He doesn't know. But he's trying to find out. He's experimenting. He's trying it out. Equally, he's investing in a load of educational startups. because he's thinking about the future of education. Is that online? Is it virtual? Is it using holograms? Is it using virtual reality? We don't know. All we know is it's going to change, and he's one of the individuals that's trying to figure out how it should change and how it will work. So what we're asking you to do is don't worry that you don't know what the future is going to be. Be liberated. We have no idea. But if you experiment, you try, you compare notes with each other, you're going to be in a better place to create something exciting and help shape that future. So that's the future bit. And then there's the do-it-all themselves. Here we have Mark. And very early on, as a psychology student, he realized this really exciting world of social media, he didn't have the skills to capitalize himself. So he surrounded himself with very clever individuals, most of them computer scientists, and they did all the coding and the algorithms and the marketing and the branding. Neat trick, isn't it? So you need to think about, okay, which bit of it are you going to do, and which bit of it do you need other people to do? That's a recurrent theme that's going to come back throughout the conference. Now, the other picture I've chosen here, you probably won't recognize. Anyone recognize this individual? No? This is James Proud, and James is my new favorite person because he might be the next Mark Zuckerberg, and he might not. But what he's doing is he's engaging in exactly the same behaviors. James was born in South London, in a council estate, and he was thinking about going to university, and he was playing around with, he built some websites, and he sold a few things on eBay. And he saw an advert for an entrepreneur's scholarship in Silicon Valley, $100,000. And what did he do? He didn't think, oh, that's not for me, someone in the council estate in South London. He said, I'm going to apply for that and see what happens. And he actually won it. So he won $100,000 to go to Silicon Valley and start up a business. What business was it going to be? He had no idea. He ended up starting up a business called Gig Finder, which is, you might imagine, it's an online business where you try and find out where the latest gig is and you build your sort of social community around it. He exited from that business, and then he decided he was going to try and build a business in an area he felt really passionately about. And the area he felt passionately about was sleep. I don't know if you've read the news and the media about sleep, but sleep is a very complicated thing. And you're all familiar with the concept, I'm sure. You maybe didn't sleep very well last night. I was a bit excited about today, so I had a bit of a restless night. But the influence of sleep on both your physical and mental health is profound and long-lasting. And so there's an opportunity there. Can we make sleep better? And that's what James was interested in. So he's in Silicon Valley. He's won this entrepreneur scholarship. He's exited from one business. He persuades some very, very high net worth individuals that founded PayPal and Google and things to invest in his sleep business. And he created, if you like, a Fitbit for sleep. You know the Fitbit concept, the fitness tracker? And you wear the fitness tracker, and it tracks how well you sleep and gives you advice as how you might sleep better. So the sleep equivalent to Fitbit. Now, he made a lot of money out of that. He sold lots of them. It's very fashionable, very timely. But when he started looking at it, it didn't work very well. People used it for a while, and then they stopped using it. So what did he do? Again, he didn't see the future. He said, well, that's not working, and I want to improve sleep. So he changed it. And he changed it, and he got rid of the fitness tracker element of it. He created a sensor you clip on your pillow, a little bedside thing that links up to the internet. And he had to go back to all those high net worth individuals and explain to them that his original idea was actually a bit rubbish, and they weren't going to get the money. So that's an interesting conversation to have in Silicon Valley. But he did. And then they said, well, in that case, we're not going to fund your next venture. You're useless. Go away. And so he went and he crowdsourced. And he raised millions on the web using crowdsourcing. And now it's the hottest selling product, this little sensor that it glows green when the room's the right conditions for sleep. It monitors your sleep, and then it recommends how you could sleep better the next night. Is it going to be the next Facebook? I don't know. The reason I pull it out as an example is that kind of behavior, that trying things out, figuring out whether it works or not, being full and frank about it, and then moving on. And equally, surrounding yourself by people. He surrounded himself by people that built sensors and did the website and did the data analytics because he didn't know how to do it. Okay with the concept? So, don't worry about not being able to see the future, and make sure you get other people to help you out as you try and figure out what the future might be. So what I've got here is some research that backs this up. This is work that we did where we looked at about 40,000 internet startup businesses. So this is from TechCrunch data. So this is a huge number of businesses, and it's figuring out the background of the individuals that raised money and exited from those businesses as a measure of success. So this, is, if you like, is a sort of a data-driven argument behind what I was talking about before. So on here, if you look with the colours, the darker it gets, the more successful this internet business is. Okay? And what I'd like to point out to you is, regard whatever your degree background is, if you're studying a technical degree, so if you're doing engineering or science or computer science or something like that, and you're working away and you don't really know very much, you're not likely to be very successful. But then as you get more knowledge, as you go through your studies, you're going to get more successful, more successful, more successful. And then there's an interesting thing here, that if you get too much knowledge, you become less successful. So there's a bit of a bliss point if you're just studying technical stuff as to how successful your business will be. Now, that's okay. But then what about if you're studying business? I've got business school students here. If you're studying business, a similar pattern, except, as you see, the more you learn about business, the better and better and better you get. And in part, that's why we're doing this conference, is if you haven't got some business education, we're moving you up here. But before the business school students get really smug and say, oh, we're better than technical students, the point is, if you want to be up here, the most successful, which I'm sure you all do, you actually need both. You need technical knowledge, and by technical knowledge, this also extends, we also looked at students studying English and art and history, equally valid. You need some technical knowledge that's going to add value, but you also need some business knowledge, which you're getting here today. So what this shows is the largest ever study of business success, you need combinations. So you need to think very carefully in your learning set about what you know, what you don't know, and who else in your group or in this room has got the knowledge that you need so you can get into that most successful triangle at the top there. Okay with that? Right, so the final example I'm going to give you, I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Sam. So Dr. Sam, PhD student, geneticist, really interesting in that Dr. Sam understood how to do genetic testing, which is a complete mystery to me, but it all seems very exciting. And as I'm sure you're familiar, with genetic testing is unique. Everybody's got their own genetic profile and has profound implications for lots of different things. Now, Dr. Sam didn't want to stay in the lab. She wanted to build a business. She wanted to be an entrepreneur. And she wasn't quite sure how to go about it, but she got up and going, and she built a business and developed it and honed it and refined it. And she got to a stage where she wanted to pitch for support. And I wouldn't recommend it, but she went on a popular TV program called The Dragon's Den, which you may be familiar with. So those of you not familiar with The Dragon's Den is a program where an entrepreneur comes onto the stage and they have to stand because they're the entrepreneur. And then there's a group of potential investors who are allowed to sit because they've got lots of money. And they sit there behind their piles of cash just to emphasize how rich they are. And then they take it in turns to ridicule the entrepreneur, one at a time. That's the sort of basic premise of it. So why would you put yourself through that? Well, we'll revisit that in a moment, but what I'd like to share with you is just a very short clip of Dr. Sam pitching to the dragons with her genetic-based idea and what the dragons thought about it.
We have impeccable credentials.
My name is Dr. Samantha de Combel, and this is my partner, Dr. Stuart Grice. We're scientists.
Their product was a fusion of the worlds of art and science.
We've created a range of beautiful artwork with the most personal touch of all. It gives you a glimpse inside of your DNA.
Piers Ninny found it all a bit baffling.
So you want to be the premier scientific artwork company?
Yes.
So where does it go next? You put someone's appendix in a nice coloured jar. Where's it supposed to go?
No, we do bespoke work. It's like a portrait, it's little bits of people, little bits of their family.
Designer Kelly Hoppen couldn't picture the product in any of her interiors.
I'm sort of trying to get my head around why I'd want to see that as a piece of art on my wall. I'm not sure I want to look at that. I don't believe that the science and the art go together. And I don't think this is in the slightest bit commercial. I think it's ridiculous.
Duncan Bannatyne was surprised when he decoded the cost of the scientific pictures.
What price do you sell them at?
So this one will be 1,549.
What? People are paying £1,500 for that. Have you analysed the DNA genes of these people to see if they'll get the daft gene? Or the throw money away gene?
It's a bespoke piece of artwork, Duncan.
The dragons were less interested in the DNA of the entrepreneur's artwork and more intrigued by the chemistry of their relationship.
Are you married?
Been going out for 17 years.
It's a bit of a sore point.
If you were to do it now, I'd invest.
Please.
Honestly?
You are in so much trouble now.
But any hope of a dragon-doctor relationship was dashed as Piers Linney summed up the feeling in the day.
So I think you do have a small market for certain people that would go for this. Is it a business you can invest in? I'm not convinced. It says not for me, so I'm out.
Wow. So, whatever happens on Sunday, it's not going to be as bad as that, okay? That's the good take-home message. But the reason I shared this with you, and I spoke to Sam after the event, and I was like, oh, you must have been mortified and all that sort of thing. She said, well, actually, we knew the dragons wouldn't be particularly interested in the business. And it was a good business. You know, her and her fiancé, bit of a sore point there, not husband, they were trading, they were making a good living, they were doing what they loved, they were doing the testing, they were doing the artwork, they were working with a small group of customers. But the reason why they went on Dragon's Den is they were convinced there was something bigger and better and they weren't sure what it was, and they wanted to get out before an audience. And what they found was that one person that was watching the Dragon's Den was this chap here, Dan. And Dan was a business person and also a doctor, and he ran a fitness training business. And his fitness training business was doing incredibly well, but he was looking for a competitive edge over his rivals. So he contacted Dr. Sam. He said, saw you on Dragon's Den. Yeah, a bit of a car crash, wasn't it? Sorry and all that. But can you use your genetic testing to help people improve their fitness? And Dr. Sam said, well, I don't know, but let's give it a try. And fast forward about a year's worth of work, and they launched a business called Fitness Genes. And this business provided genetic testing and then recommended nutrition and training advice for high-performance athletes. And they had to close the business down because the demand just went like that. People were using it. They started to win competitions, started to win races, weightlifting championships and things like that. And as a result, they had to just check this microphone here. They had to close the business down because of the high demand for it. And they did a very brave thing. They closed the business down, they stopped it, they apologized to all the customers, they went away, they pitched, not to the dragons, gained more investment, grew the lab, employed more people, and now it's the fastest growing genetics business because they're offering it to the general public as well. And they've got offices here, in the Far East, in America, they're on USA Today. So this just shows the value of the pitch, the value of sharing your ideas more widely and diversely, and matching up your expertise with someone else that complements what you do, and just trying something out and learning from it and experimenting. And that's the kind of ethos, the kind of way we want you to work over the next few days. So you're going to make a pitch. You're going to make lots of pitches on Sunday. And between now and then, every conversation you have is a pitch. Every time you speak to someone else about your business, you're explaining it, you're articulating it, you're explaining what you can do, what you can't do. So everyone you speak to, if you think of as, not as a dragon, but as a potential partner in your business. They could be an investor, yes. They could work with you, they could work for you, they could be a partner, they could be an advisor, they could be a mentor, they could be a coach. They could just be someone that gives you some valuable knowledge for free. So everyone you speak to is a potential partner, and what they're really interested in is, first and foremost, what you're working on. Is it worth solving that? Is it worth all the effort to create something new to solve the problem you've identified? In Sam's case, the dragons decided it wasn't. In Dan Reardon's case, he said it certainly is. If we can help people with health and welfare and nutrition and well-being in a better way, that is a brilliant problem to solve. And even more, I want to work with you on it. Because that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to convince people to buy into your problem and work with you, and then you get to the next step, which is, what are you going to do about it? And which piece of it are you going to do something about? So with Dr. Sam, she was doing the genetic bit, and Dan was doing the fitness, the nutrition bit. Perfect partnership. So that's what you want to get into the habit of doing. So what we're going to ask you to do after you've heard all the talks is to go into your learning set, and you're all going to pitch to each other and say, what problem you're trying to solve? Are you working on sleep, health, well-being, nutrition? What is it you're working on? What's the exciting problem you're working on? And then you've got to be really open. You've got to think about this as free therapy for entrepreneurs. What's the thing you're really worried about? What don't you know about? What challenge is it you're facing you want to address? And then your fellow entrepreneurs and the mentors are going to share with you their full and frank feedback. They're going to be your dragons. They're going to say, I don't care about that problem. I don't buy into it. I don't get it. I don't understand it. You're going to have to get better and better at explaining it and convincing them to buy into your problem and why it's really important that you work on it. And then they're going to give you the positive advice about, okay, well, if you changed it, if you changed the nature of the problem you're working on some way, if you started working in a different way, if you did it this way, if you did it that way, I can understand how it could be better. So all the time we're going for this, what you're trying to do, what challenge are you facing, and then what are you going to do about it? And you're going to repeat that, and the more times you repeat that, the better your business will be. Okay with that? Very simple, very straightforward. What could possibly go wrong? Great, okay, so I've been up here long enough. I'm going to return for the Q&A. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hand you over to two entrepreneurs, and they're going to share their insights into how they address the very real challenges I highlighted, of finding out what the challenge is and doing something about it. So it's my great pleasure to welcome Sarah Iqbal. Last time I met Sarah, she was actually presenting to me in a class. So it's going to be lovely to hear what she's been up to in the intervening period. So please join me in welcoming Sarah to the stage.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Iqbal. I'm an alumnus of University of Nottingham, class of 2013. It's very nice to meet everybody. Thank you so much for having me. I am a medical scientist by background. I have been in the medical world for a long time, and I still consider myself a scientist, even though now I work in a technology world. I work in a company called Bio2Ware, and we operate in the digital health industry, focusing on streamlining clinical processes and consumer well-being processes using digital technology. We have a new office. We are currently located in Lace Market, Nottingham. I thought I'll run through with you how I came about working in the healthcare industry. So I started officially started my healthcare work with a degree in biochemistry. Yeah, I did biochemistry, and then upon graduation, I worked with a pharmaceutical company called GlaxoSmithKline, primarily in the pharmaceutical arm. They had a consumer arm as well, and I was working in research. I was focusing on the therapy area of cardiovascular and metabolic diseases, focusing very much in diabetes. So basically my work was to create new drugs, enhance new drugs in the market, particularly in those two therapy areas, and test them out on patients, on doctors and nurses, and I pretty much work in a hospital. After working in research and development for a while, I was given the opportunity to pursue my master's, and so I decided to do my master's in University of Nottingham, and I pursued a master's in science of applied biopharmaceuticals, biotechnology, and entrepreneurship, officially the course with the longest name on campus. But we were essentially known as the Abbey students, so I did a master's in Abbey. And this is where essentially my entrepreneurial journey started, and I wanted to run through with you the journey that I had while I was in my MSc class, all the way to where I am today. And as you can see, it's not a very straightforward journey. It's filled with ups and downs and turns, and not something that one might perceive. So before I progress any further, I wanted to introduce you to Dr. Lee Martin. He's the one circled in yellow. I hope you can see him. He was in the teaching staff here in University of Nottingham, and it was in his class, which is creative problem solving, that I started thinking about problems and solution and how I came up with my idea. So in his class, essentially, you had to come up with a novel idea. If you didn't, you were going to fail the class. So, so my team and I had to think really hard about what we wanted to do, and we came up with a problem and a solution. So the problem that we were trying to address was me as an international student studying here in the University of Nottingham. We had piles and piles and copious amount of medical data that we had to bring with us. That includes medical data, medical history, X-ray films into campus before we sign up as a student. And that was very taxing, it's not convenient, and people lose their data as they come into school. And there was also the issue of different languages and the translations of medical history. So we thought to ourselves, well, how can we make this a little bit better? How can we reduce the amount of effort that we need to just, to have our medical data given to the NHS and then the university. So we came up with a very simple technology platform that is secure, that allows students, international students, to upload the medical records and histories onto this platform and then given to the university. And we did really well. Thankfully, we passed the class. But it was 8 months prior to graduation. We were not ready yet to kind of bring this idea forward, so we parked it aside and then went through and progressed with our semesters. Upon graduation, we were all very excited. We were like, oh, we've finished school, and everybody has their own plans, and I had my plans too. I was planning to work as part of the GSK team, I was given the opportunity to work in the S Lab, the very new one on Jubilee campus. And I was supposed to be part of a research team there on a pharmaceutical research. So this was supposed to happen. So I was supposed to work here at the GlaxoSmithKline Carbon Neutral Laboratory for Sustainable Chemistry, and I was very excited. But instead, this happened. That was a little bit of a bummer. So I was just like, oh no, what am I going to do? At this point, I was disappointed, but not so much, because I was very eager to pursue with my business plan. I have done a lot of research up to this point, and I thought, okay, I should do it, but I was so nervous, and so I didn't know how to handle the uncertainties. I think some of you probably can relate to that, and it's something that I didn't know how to handle. And I thought to myself, okay, I'm going to find a job, like a real job, like normal people, and I religiously took that challenge to find a job. So you might be wondering what these numbers on the screens are, and I'll explain to you. So while I was looking for a job, I went 8 over 9, represents 8 callback interviews that I got out of the 9 positions that I applied for. And 4 are the number of interviews that I progressed with to the 2nd and 3rd stages. And then, as you might expect, I didn't get anything. I was very disappointed, but oh well. Yeah, I did not get any offers out of all the positions that I applied. But I sat down and I thought to myself, I had one opportunity. I can still do it. So hey, if nobody wanted to hire me, I'm just going to hire myself. Which is exactly what I did. So I called my team members again. So these are part of the team members. I don't know if you remember this, Simon, and I think Andrew, you were also in this class. I was pitching our ideas to them. 2 of them are not in this picture, but they are taking the picture. So we pitched the idea that we had during our creative problem-solving class, modified it along the way, and then it was well presented, it was well received, and we were going to be endorsed. We were so excited. I was thrilled. And we were on our way doing our research and chugging along with our business idea. But one by one of my team members, after weeks into this, each of them started to get real jobs, and they got jobs at Deloitte and JP Morgan and technology consulting companies and PR agencies, and then there was me. I was like, oh, okay, so what am I going to do? No hard feelings, I supported them with their decision they wanted to go, but don't worry, we're still friends today. So I decided to go solo, and that was how I came out with SIQ Innovations. Essentially, it's working in the intersection of technology and healthcare. SIQ was a consultancy platform focusing on consulting healthcare technology stakeholders and organizations within the healthcare industry on how to adopt technology. And then I was progressing with this, and it was very hard. I couldn't progress with it. Cash flow is king, as all of you know. And as much as I wanted to stay within the healthcare industry, I couldn't. I landed any job, any work that I could find for SIQ to keep it running. But I did land some really good work within the pharmaceutical industry after that. And while I was progressing with this effort, I met 2 software engineers. I met them at events like this, entrepreneurial summits. I met them on various occasions and conferences, and we became friends. We got to know each other, and we connected on LinkedIn. And then they were 2 software engineers who had a company called First App. And they wanted to work in the healthcare industry. They knew that the digital health industry was growing, but they did not understand the medical landscape. And then there was me, who is a medical scientist. I know a little bit about technology now that I've worked on it, but I wasn't a techie. I couldn't build the things that they could build. So we thought, oh, let's marry the idea together and see where we go. And for a while, we were contracting work between each other in separate different companies, and we were just contracting work with each other, and we found out that we had the same vision, the same principles on how we want to adopt technology in healthcare. And so that's how we created BioToware now. So we essentially took the essence of First App and SIQ and created a company called BioToware. It's a company now focusing very much in specializing in digital technology in healthcare. And our work now doesn't only cover the developments in clinical trials. I might just add, just now, First App only works in developing applications for clinical trials and the clinical trial processes. But as we learn about the industry, and I'll show you a slide after this on how the industry is growing and the elements of it, we listen to it, and we listen to what our clients in the industry, what they actually want, and mold our very first idea that we had to something completely different, something that was more receptive towards the industry and the audience. And that's what BioToware is. And now our work not only covers mobile app development in clinical trials, it goes to covering work in the consumer well-being arm. So there will be mobile app development to wearable integration, whether it's Fitbit or Jawbone in clinical trials and in a consumer setting, to cloud solution platforms to have the data sit somewhere, and then essentially analytics. So we cover a range of services now because we understand the medical landscape. So the pain point that we were trying to address is that the healthcare industry, as important as it is in our lives, it is one of the slowest industries to adopt technology. And it was very hard for us to grow. It's one of the reasons why it was hard for me to grow my SIQ further, because the industry wasn't very receptive. But as well, I was doing it alone at that time, and it was hard to grow. You couldn't get funding, and because you couldn't show the correct turnovers and all that stuff. So that's why, working together with them and then finally creating something that was more receptive towards the industry was very useful. And we are almost to our millions now. We are listed as one of the preferred Apple developers for healthcare, and we are looking forward to so much more exciting news for us. We managed to move our office now from a shared office to now a really big office, and we have our own printer. And that's exciting because we don't share things anymore. We are independent, and we look forward to kind of growing the company as we progress into the years. This is essentially to give you a little taste of the connected digital health industry. Primarily when I first started and when First App started, we were just in these little bubbles of colors in the medical apps. So all the different colored bubbles you see here are the different elements of digital health, and we work a lot in fitness, wellness, apps, and wearables, but at the same time, we work in a more regulated environment, which is medical apps, medication management, and remote monitoring. And we do see at some point that these two industries, the regulated industry, which is more medically inclined, versus the consumer arm, which is integrating your Jawbone or Fitbit into a clinical trial will merge at some point, but that's how we listen to how the industry kind of folds. And we now cover all these areas from just one bubble that we did before, which was mobile health, and we cover a lot of things now, which is an improvement for a small company like us, and we are hoping to grow more. This is an example of some of the work that we have done as a company. As I mentioned before, we have the wellness and lifestyle consumer well-being arm and the medical arm, and then we integrate everyday life technology into the medical world, and it's proven to be very useful in reducing costs in healthcare, and we are planning to do that more and more. So, as an entrepreneur working with the different ideas that we have, it's constantly changing, and you have to be very receptive to that, and then your first idea is never going to be your end outcome. So before I end the presentation, I thought I'll impart you with some wisdom and some key messages that you should take with you as you progress towards your entrepreneurial career. You have to remember that it's not always about you or your idea. There's a lot of things that's happening within the industry, and ideas evolve, it becomes better, you become more receptive towards the industry, and the harder that you work, the luckier that you're going to get, and the more opportunities that you're going to see. Your end goal, like I said before, your end goal is never going to be your first idea, and you have to be okay with that. Not everything that you plan will happen the way that you want it to. It never does in the entrepreneurial world, and you have to be very flexible and willing. Your willingness to change has to be there, and your willingness to be able to be very receptive is also very important. And once you take the leap, like when I did, don't surrender. Please don't, because there's so much more that you can do, and it's about anybody can come up with an idea. But what I think it's about sticking to that idea is what counts most. Not a lot of people can stick to things nowadays. But you cannot surrender. You have to mold yourself to understand how you can grow yourself and grow the company. And that is why you have to be very persistent. And with persistent, you have to endure it. Really, because nothing is set in stone, and you have to understand that you have to go with the flow. That's really what I'm trying to say. And finally, please don't lose hope, because there's so much of opportunities out there for you to grow yourself. So this is business, and this is how you're going to compete in this entrepreneurial world, and this is how you're going to make your entrepreneurial career work. I have left my contacts here, but that's my story as an entrepreneur, and what will yours be? Thank you.
So if you hold your questions for Sarah, we're going to have a Q&A with both speakers after David's spoken. So it's my great pleasure to invite across the stage David Park from News Park. What can I say about David? I'll say nothing about David. I'll let him introduce himself. But you're in for a treat, so listen very carefully, because he's only going to say this once.
Thank you very much, sir. Good morning, everyone.
David, I think, before you say
oh, thank you. Thank you, Simon. Hi, my name's David. I'm a graduate of this university. It's like a big group therapy session, isn't it? So the brief I had today was to come along and basically, could I cover off everything to do with strategy and my own backstory and everything else in about 15 minutes, which is going to be challenging to do. So, a bit about me first. I'm not quite as young as some of the others in this room. So I did my degrees here in the 90s in engineering and science. So any engineers in the room? We can do it. I've also had a lot of fun in the last 15, 20 years running around the planet, starting new companies from scratch, pitching for cash, taking ideas all the way through to the stage when you're licensing them to FTSE 100 companies and getting a bag of gold from that. I've made loads of mistakes. I've got married. I've got 4 kids. Those aren't the mistakes, by the way. Is this on film? I don't know. Oh. And in reality, I've spent a lot of time thinking about strategy. I'm not a clever academic. I'm not a clever, experienced, lots of business degrees. But to me, as a simple engineer, the strategy is about having a clear view of where you would like to get to. That might be your business. It might be a subset of your business. And it's putting some sort of plan in place, working out the resources you need of how you're going to get there. And so it comes down to, where do you want to get to? How are you going to get there? And the theme that I think is going to come out through a lot of today, I suspect, is around about other people. The importance of building those relationships on an ongoing basis with the various folk that you need to realize your strategy. So if you take one thing away from me, have some sort of plan of where you want to get to, actively work on engaging and identifying the people you need to help get you there. Well, that's the end there, isn't it? Should we call it that? Thank you very much. Yeah. What strategy to choose? People will say, well, how do I go about doing this? What should I choose? What should I go about doing this? There is no easy answer most of the time. This will take you a lot of time and a lot of hair to explore different ideas. I can guarantee you, you will need to evolve and dramatically change your strategies before you even start. Once you're up and running, have some sort of plan. But you're going to have to evolve, especially in startup land. This is not a stable environment for most of us. Another key thing that's caused me some trouble over my life, and I go and restructure companies now and that sort of thing, and I see this a lot. Everybody who's involved needs to buy into the strategy. So at one level, I don't care what the strategy is, have one, and make sure everyone buys into it, because one of the biggest issues I see is organizations where the shareholders actually, it turns out, don't agree on the strategy. But you'd only find that out a couple of years down the line. Which comes back to the point about effective communication with people. Become a great storyteller. Work out how you, in your own style, can effectively communicate with other people. That's a real key skill. It will make a difference to your success. And again, we can't cover every answer for every type of business off today. So some key points that I would encourage you to identify and explore and agree between yourselves. And I don't mind, there's no right or wrong answers here, but what are you basing your new idea around? Is it a single thing? A piece of intellectual property, an idea? Is it actually some sort of underpinning technical expertise? I mean, all of these are perfectly valid. Just be clear you know what you are. Is it something to do with, I love lawyers, I love accountants, I love giving them lots of money. Sorry. Is it some sort of underpinning expertise that perhaps isn't technical? Again, all of these are valid, but what are you? What are you offering? What is your willingness and the willingness of those around you to invest time? Is there any billionaires in the room with their wallets here today? No. You're going to have to. Money solves a lot of things. You're going to have to invest time. You're going to have to persuade others to invest their time. It's perfectly fine for this to be a part-time sideline, as long as you all agree that that is what you are going to do, and that is what you're all going to actually put on the table. It's perfectly fine, as long as your better half and your health can cope with it, for this to be an all-consuming startup. These silver hairs were earned. Maybe that's the 4 kids. I don't know. What's your preferred legal structure? I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an accountant. There's experts here, and part of the prize pool will help you on this. There's lots of ways, and they're different around the world as well. So please be careful. I've operated in certain different countries. Don't assume that lessons learned here apply elsewhere on the planet. Be careful. There's lots of ways of setting things up. What's right for you? Have a good think about that. Have an understanding. What's your timescales, your desired exit? And I think Rob and some of the others will be covering some of these things off over the course of the weekend. What is your personal appetite for risk? From my own experience, that changes over time. You might be younger, you might be older, you might have family, you might not, you might have all sorts of other things going on in your life. Make sure you have a clear view of what your position is around risk, and that could be to your money, it could be to your reputation, it could be whatever it might be. I'm not an academic or a clever person. I'm just putting these 2 books up there because I think they're useful. Others will have their own views. The one on the left, I think, is the best sort of, if you like, help guide that I've come across. Others will have a different view. So Startup Owner's Manual. It links to the business canvas and various other bits and bobs. The one on the right, and I'll let the legal people do their spiel later on over the weekend, I hadn't realized when I was younger that actually, for example, being a director of a company carries all sorts of responsibilities. And lack of knowledge of what your responsibilities are, I believe, is not an actual defense if you forget them or fail to do them. So please be cognizant of what you are taking on. And it's, really interesting bedtime reading that. But I would encourage you to find out what it is that you might be signing yourself up to. And if needs be, get appropriate advice from folk who do know what they're on about. Don't enter some of these things lightly. So, I'll try and rush through this quickly because we're short of time today. There will be a need for you, and I don't care how big you are. The Elon Musks of this world, with all of their billions and all their enterprises, still need to engage with other people and organizations. Absolutely the case. Whoever you are, take a close look at where you want to get to and try and assess how much access have you got to some of these key things? How much do you need to get hold of? What are some of the creative ways that you can get hold of it? Money can get you so far, but in reality, most of them in this room aren't sitting on millions or access to millions we can just pour down the drain. So you're going to have to be slightly smart about how you access the things you need. And this is where that iteration comes back in. You might have a grand vision. That's where I'm going to go. This is the things I need to get there. In reality, it might not actually be possible. You might have to slightly finesse where you're getting to. You might have to recognize, actually, I can only get that. What does that mean? What's the impact on my ability to deliver what I think I want to deliver? There's loads of other things in the list there. There's lots of formal tools out there that will help you look through that. We haven't got time to go through these today, but they are out there. But you must do that. We mentioned cash earlier on. Become obsessed with cash flow. I'm not an accountant. I know there's accounting things to do. You must know how much money you have in and how much is going out. I go into businesses sometimes and say, how much money have we got? Well, I don't know. How can you not know? Become obsessed with this. Lose sleep over this, please. Actively run scenarios and what ifs. What if things are going to change? Because, as we've heard already, things will change. Anybody who sits there and says, I'm going to start this company and I know exactly where I'm going to be in 5 years' time, is lying. And I'm happy to have my bluff called on that. So, explore creative approaches. And I'm going to try and give you some examples from my own experience to what I mean by creative approaches to doing the things that you need to do. It could be raising your profile. It could be that part of your strategy needs to incentivize other people. It could be actually, how do I actually successfully get this idea in front of people? Don't forget about balancing your life and your priorities. So at the moment, I've got 4 kids. We're home educating them. I've decided to take a step back from the full-on 100-hour-a-week startup. So sold the big Mercedes, working on a lot less money, but actually a lot happier at the moment. And when I hit 45, perhaps that will all change again. And we'll go zooming off and do something else. A couple of slides here, just doing creative things. When I was about 30, I quite fancied setting up my own company for the first time, other than working for other startups. And so I quite fancied moving to New Zealand. I'd never been there, but I like rugby and wine, and it looked quite nice. Have we got anybody from New Zealand here today? No? Okay, it's a great place. And so I thought, well, what do I need to do? My strategy was I want to set up a company which will give me a reasonable lifestyle in New Zealand. How do I go about getting there? So I decided the best thing to do was to ring up the New Zealand Embassy in London and ask them for $2 million. So that's what I did. And they said, who are you? What do you want? Strange man. But I managed to persuade them to give me a meeting. So I jumped on the train and wrote a business plan on the train, which is not how you do it, so don't do this in the real world, which had a strategy, which was, here's expertise I and my team have in mapping and geospatial technology and monitoring the environment and robotic systems and all sorts of other cool stuff. And I persuaded them that they needed that as a country and didn't have any expertise in it. So it took me 18 months in the end, but I got $3 million. And in part to that, I reminded to ask my wife after I'd asked them, do you fancy moving to New Zealand, dear? And she said, oh yeah, let's go there. Got a few of my mates as well from the university. And so there was 4 of us there. Got this university on board because I wanted some of the intellectual property from this place. And I asked them for £100,000 as a loan and various other things as well. And so we moved to New Zealand, which was great. And so that was part 1 of the strategy realised. I seem to have forgotten to ordered any furniture. So we had a cardboard box between us. But that was us on day one. Always, I encourage you to take a photograph of your business, your adventure, your company on the first day you're there. I've got a lot of happy memories. For those of you squinching your eyes, I'm the one in the middle. The hair's a bit darker, but that is me. And we're having a glass of orange juice there before we start off on our adventure. I had a plan of how I wanted to grow that company, the 5-year vision, the strategy. I thought I needed about 30 engineers. And I probably needed some contacts around the world. And so from that perspective, I worked backwards and realized the various things that I needed. And so within 18 months, we've obviously upgraded the accommodation a bit. You can tell I've gone into management. I'm still in the middle, but I've bought a jacket now. It's this jacket, actually. Which was a little present I got myself. Google got in touch with us and said to me, you know, you're doing some cool stuff around UAVs and what have you. Can we pay for you to come up business class, first class, up to Google HQ in San Francisco, give a tech talk and talk to us? And I said, yes, that would be very cool, thank you. And so I bought this jacket at Macy's in San Francisco many years ago. So we grew the team, and again, part of the strategy, part of the innovative ways of persuading these guys to come wasn't excess cash, because I wasn't awash with money. But we had a great story, we had opportunities. Come to New Zealand, have an adventure. Who wants to go to Antarctica? Who wants to play with all these cool bits of tech that we've got lying around? There were all sorts of ways of raising profile. I then wanted to start raising the profile internationally. So within 2 years of starting, we had to move to another building again. And this time, we got the Prime Minister of New Zealand to come down to open it. So that's John Key on the right there. And you can tell I'm really serious about this because I've got a tie. So my sartorial journey continues. And I actually did put a tie on today because I didn't want you to think that I wasn't taking it seriously. But everyone else seemed to be wearing civvies, so I've taken that away again. And I'm looking a bit worried here because this is one of our indoor quadcopters that we were developing about 10 years ago. And there's 4 whirling blades of death on top, about a metre away from the Prime Minister's nose. So part of your strategy should be, don't put lethal weapons in the hand of junior engineers within a metre or 2 of visiting dignitaries. That's a risk. But it was New Zealand, so that was all right, and it worked out all right. And the armed guards behind the cameraman were very understanding when he broke a window next to him. So anyway, another top tip about strategy, you can't always see the future. What happened to this company? It turns out that the best time to start your first major startup with a grand 5-year growth plan isn't 2 years before the world's largest recession. So who knew? I didn't see it coming. My strategy certainly didn't take it on board. So long story short, we kept going for a while, but our income dropped 90%. I changed strategy. I tried to evolve things. In the end, I made the decision to close the business. It was a really tough call. I did it in the way I wanted to. I left no external debts. You know, I did what I could for the team that I had. But actually, having built all that up, and we had 40-plus guys, we had all sorts of cool stuff going on, to have to close that down was actually quite a big hit personally. So you dust yourself off, you've run out of money. I brought the family back here. We had 4 kids by that point. You know, my daughter was born down there. I borrowed 10 grand off my brother-in-law, promised to give it to him back, to get us back on our feet again. And so you start again. You have a new strategy, you have something else in mind. The university here was kind enough to say to me, can you go and look at some of our startups? Some of which are brilliant, some of which might be struggling, and see what you want to have a play with. And so one of them was a company that needed restructuring. We're on film, so I'll be careful what I say, but we restructured that business into a form where they could take in new ideas for ingredients or food and take them through a process that reduced the risk for a large company in the sense of, can you make this at scale? Are you selling it to people, etc.? And so one of the other strategies there was about raising our profile with other universities. So the plan I had was, let's go in for lots of awards that other universities and other people with ideas might be seeing. And if we're lucky enough to win one of those, then they will know that we can do what we're doing and we're off. So that didn't cost us anything. So you're always looking, or I'm always looking, thinking about that obsession with cash. How can we, for not a lot of resource, get to where we need to get to? And sometimes it requires a bit of thought. It almost always requires a lot of luck. It always relies on other people to do their bit. So building on what my colleagues have said, none of us do this alone. We are all working with direct teams, indirect partners, other businesses, other organizations. That is fundamental to success. Sometimes things go well. So, my journey of sartorial elegance is now complete. I've got a dinner jacket on, hired for the occasion. The downside of winning the top award in the country for university commercialization in 2013 is that prize, that top prize, is usually at the end of the awards ceremony. So I may have had a glass of orange juice or two by that point. I think the few of us have as well. There's some government guys. Susan Huxtable on the right still runs the tech transfer team here at this university. Top tip for anybody doing awards ceremonies, don't make the awards out of cut glass crystal. I am actually putting my fingerprints on the prize there, but you can't see it because it's see-through. It's sitting over in Steve's Ingenuity building somewhere, probably getting dust on it, on a shelf somewhere. But the outcome was right. We had all sorts of other universities, other companies with ideas around food and ingredients, then get in touch off the back of that saying, that's really cool what you've done there. Can we talk to you about giving you all our IP so you can do some more? Yes, you can. So, quick jot through there, lots of formal tools and processes. I'm a big fan of doing the what-if questions as well. I've put the sensible ones here. You can make ridiculous ones. But when you are thinking strategy, when you're trying to explore how you can realize the aims and objectives you've given yourselves, what about if you charge 100 times as much? What if you change country? What if you turn gravity off? You know, whatever it might be, don't just follow the basic tools. Allow yourself to be slightly creative. There's some challenges there. We won't go through these. We're trying to make sure we've got time for Q&A, son. If anybody wants to talk to me about some of these, the short bit of it is you're going to have to change your strategy at some point. Yeah? Don't drop things too soon, but be aware that you have to continuously monitor where you're at, where your environment's at, where you're trying to get to. Has any of that changed? And sometimes you actually have to say no. And that's really hard as well, stopping the next big thing. But as long as you've got some reason for it, you've got some sort of process, and everyone who's involved buys into what you're trying to do, sometimes you just have to stop things. Final key lessons from me, not too dissimilar actually to my colleague there. Please don't be afraid to give it a go. Just by dint of being here, you are starting to stand out compared to the other 7 billion people on this planet. Yeah? The experience you gain will prove invaluable to you over your life. Always proactively monitor and assess what you're up to and proactively change things if you need to. You're in charge of this. Drive it. I'm a big fan as well of being yourself and finding your own style. Don't just try and copy what you see somebody on the television or a film or in a book doing. Find your own way of engaging. Find your own way of persuading. And whatever you end up doing, I firmly, firmly believe that your relationships with other people are the key to your success. Trust your instincts, be prepared to change your plans, and do remember what your priorities are as they change over time. And whatever you do, please have fun. Thank you very much for listening. Good luck.
Thank you very much, David. So it all seems fairly straightforward to me, but I'm sure it's not as simple as that. So what we'd like to do now is Steve asked you to try and capture any questions you might have as we were going through the speakers. We've got some roving mics over there, so I'm going to invite questions from the floor. If you just wait until the mic comes to you, and then let forth, and don't be afraid. You might want to ask a question and feel a bit foolish. Please ask it, because lots of people will be wanting you to ask that question on their behalf, okay? So, invite questions for Sarah, David, or even myself, please. Here we go, look, enthusiasm down the front. The challenge is to keep the microphones moving as far as possible, so we'll go front and back and front and back.
So my question is to Sarah. You mentioned earlier that medical sector is the slowest sector accepting technology.
Yes.
Why do you say so? What factors that affects it?
Okay, that's a very good question. Thank you. The healthcare industry is one of the industries that's the slowest to adopt technology for good reasons, actually, mainly because of data security and privacy. Healthcare data is very, very sensitive, and you cannot underestimate the amount of sensitivity that goes around it, and there's a lot of requirements that you need to follow, a lot of rules that you need to adhere to just to make sure that you are, whatever product that you're coming up with or whatever service that you're coming up with aligns with the requirements of the FDA or the European Medical Union or healthcare boards like that. And that's why There are a lot of red tapes and bureaucracy as well within healthcare industry itself. But primarily, really, it's about the sensitivity of the data and to ensure how secure that data can be. And that's why technology sometimes doesn't give the confidence to the healthcare industry that it can be secured. But we obviously a lot of education needs to go into this, because some of the healthcare stakeholders as well, they don't understand how technology works. And there needs to be a lot of times where I need to educate them and, you can actually do it, this is how you do it, and they just don't understand it yet. So that's another reason why healthcare sometimes is slower to adopt the digital technology that we have now. But it's progressing as we go into the industry, and I'm looking forward for it to kind of, instead of crawling but running now, hopefully.
Thank you. Oh, we've got a question behind you, Terry, there, look. Oh, it's you? Yeah, okay.
Hello.
Yeah, of course it is.
I'm Abdul. My question is for Sarah. I'm very interested with the connected digital health industry matrix.
Yes.
My question is simple. How you build that matrix, on what base? How you build that matrix?
Can you say that again?
How you build, how you compose that such matrix?
Uh-huh.
How did you compose the matrix?
Oh, right, okay.
Okay, one. And second, only one question. Only one question. Do you know any more information about genetic testing environment?
Right, okay.
Landscape. Okay, thank you.
Okay. So the first question was understanding how the elements of the digital health and the communication matrix of how it works. In healthcare itself, there are already technologies happening within healthcare, and then we have digital technology, and those two don't really align. So nowadays, there are a lot of databases, for example, in healthcare that remain in silo, and different healthcare industries have their own databases, their own servers, their own thing, very, very proprietary and exclusive to themselves. Nobody talks to each other. It just answers the first question again as well, why it's so slow to adopt digital technology. But now, a lot of the stakeholders in the industry are coming out to ask industry leaders and people who are within the industry like myself on how to have their databases talk to each other. And that's how we come up with the platforms that we have within Bio2Ware, and understand that different APIs, different kind of languages that you need to code to connect the databases together, and then understanding what the security needs are, what kind of data that you're actually capturing, and those little elements, because it really depends. The data that you capture, if it is used to diagnose something, then you have to be very careful with it because people are using it. But if the data that you're capturing is just as a means of capturing data, but you don't really do anything with it, and that's okay. So understanding how the data flows within your supply chain really is very important, and that's how we kind of progress with the industry and created Bio2Ware. I hope that answers your question. Can you repeat the second question again? Oh, the landscape right now. I would say I've been in this industry about 4 years now. When I first started, it was really, really slow, and I thought I couldn't make it. And it's still, I wouldn't say it's growing. It's growing fast. It's a lot of buzzword to it, but it's in a position where it's starting to be very receptive towards technology vendors like myself and other people in the industry. So I would say definitely that it's picking up quicker than it was 4 years ago.
Great. So we've got two behind you, Terry, one to the right and then back on to the left as well.
Hi, it's Asan Gul. My question would be to David. Whenever we are planning our ideas or our business model, there's always that loudest voice in our head, or the idea continuously going in our head. No matter how much criticism we get around it, we always try to stick with it in a way or try to justify it. So how flexible we have to go around it to the criticism. Yeah.
It's a great question. So obviously, you have to have some faith in your idea. You have to potentially push it forward a bit to an extent if people around you are questioning your sanity or your idea or, just say, really, that's never going to happen. So you have to have a degree of self-belief, but please trust or listen to those you trust around you. I found it really hard to take on any sort of criticism of my idea. I still do. I get very defensive. And it's something I consciously have to work at, is actually saying, if I do rate this person, and that's a key caveat, perhaps let me try and absorb and listen to what they're actually trying to say to me. Does that give me a sort of fine tune, or does it bring something credible that I can bring to apply to this idea? I know I'm brilliant and perfect. No, I'm not. Everyone in this room will have to possibly work at some point to take on board, take on the chin, somebody saying, I don't think that's going to work. I think that's rubbish. It may well be that that person's telling you the truth. I can't sit here and say, here's the silver bullet that enables you to determine which option you're in. Somebody who's a doubter and you need to just push on through. Somebody who's actually giving you credible advice you need to listen to. Some of it is back to the thing I said about people. I think we've all said, build the right network around you. Folk you trust in different aspects related to your business. Train yourself to bite your tongue and not get too defensive about your idea, which, as Steve said earlier on, you will have to practice sharing a little bit with others. Listen to what the others are saying to you. Is that okay?
Hi. My question goes out to David. I want to specifically know, what was your mindset at the time you decided to quit your business and stop it all? And what was the key deciding factor for actually stopping the business at that point? And did you have a lot of uncertainties afterwards as well?
It's really tough. Perhaps I'm just an emotional person, but when you've created something from scratch and actually you've got a strategy, and for the first 3 years, it's actually gone ahead of where you hoped it might be. When you've moved to a different part of the planet, when you've dragged other people along with you, when you're living the dream, I found it really tough. And it didn't just happen instantly. I mean, if those of you who were operating at the time, there were certain key points where it felt like the world had stopped, but then there was other bits where you think, oh, well, perhaps it'll get better, or how long could this go on for? And it just never recovered. And so for us, mea culpa, I didn't have any of my projections which said, what if your income drops 90% and never recovers? And in the stage we were at, it was at one level, after many months of soul searching and trying to go around the other shareholders and seeing if any of us had any cash left, which we didn't, it became an obvious decision. So the decision itself was, I found very difficult to take, but I knew it was the right one. And that's what I said about find your own way of working. So for me, I was keen not to try and rack up millions more debt, knowing we'd probably end up leaving that on the table. Some of it was personal. So this comes back to this point I sort of made on one of the slides about what are you up to in your personal life? So for me, I had a wife, 4 young kids. We were on the other side of the world from where, our parents were. There was a lot of stress going on, and without putting too much on the table, I had to make some decisions about what my priorities were. Was it to put the family first, retrench, come back in, start again? Was it to do something else? Part of me was keen to go up to the west coast of the US. I had lots of contacts up there. My wife made it very clear that that wasn't going to happen. Yes, boss. Can we get that on tape? And so at one level, the decision itself almost made itself. It was easy. It was obvious what had to be done. I'm not saying it's easy, and so anybody who goes through any restructuring, perhaps it's because it was my first time, I don't know, but it was tough. So the mindset was, and it took me a good few months. I'm not talking instant recovery. It took me a good few months, and I was surrounded by various friends back here. This place was very good to me. Various other organizations were very good to me, gave me little opportunities to help me get back in the game. And so some of it comes down to, once you've got an idea of who you are, allow that to evolve, but trust yourself. So I had to trust myself that I could do it again. And so now I've done it a few more times, I do sort of trust myself that no matter what the situation, within reason, within my own worldview, I can go and start things, I can grow things, I can realize multi-million-dollar deals in different sectors in different parts of the planet. And that's cool. But it was tough. Is that the therapy session over?
Yeah.
Thank you, my friends.
Let it all out now. Okay, who have we got next? Yeah.
I'm Amos. Thank you for sharing your stories. It was really inspiring to hear. Can I ask, when you guys went through your darkest days, how did you manage to get through it, and what made you see the light at the end of the tunnel?
Darkest days, when all those people were offering you jobs.
So had, you know, I'm sure, you know, everybody has their dark days, and I wouldn't want to, it's so negative though, darkest day. So the way that I see it, it's, I try to always find a solution. I try to be very solution-oriented. It's not as bad as you think. Some people out there probably have it worse. Not that I mean any malice to them, but that's just how it is. And you just have to be aware that, this is, everything in life is temporary, and that includes challenges, and it's never going to last. So you just have to pick yourself up and then move forward. The way that I handle my stress days or darkest days, I like sports, I play a lot of sports, so, you go cool off for a bit, and then you have to be willing to pick yourself up because no one else is going to do it for you.
For me, it was just excess alcohol. No, it wasn't. I think trust the people around you. Work out who you are, work out what your priorities are, find a good team around you and put your faith in them. But be proactive. I think that's a key message that we've all said. Don't wait for somebody else to make the key decision. Take that responsibility yourself, even if it's hard. And don't drink at all.
Okay, so yeah, we've got some at the back and some at the front here. Who's next? Yeah, go on the left there, if you can. Yep.
Hello, everyone. Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, my name is Sean. My question is primarily for Sarah, but I welcome views from, the other panelists. You spoke a lot about market sensing, when you were doing your business. So I want you to tell us a little bit about the market research that you did, because I believe you can have a great idea in your head, motivated by your own needs, but, the market doesn't care about. So could you tell us about the tools that you used, for your market research, your strategy? Was there like a social element? And how did you know that the service you were offering, was a need? At what point did you feel, it was what the market needed, at that time?
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. That's a very good question. So I'll tell you guys another story, I guess. When I first got into Dr. Lee Martin's class, I had this idea of capturing medical data and then just kind of giving it in a digital format. That was it. And I would ask myself, why aren't people actually doing this? What's the problem? And then, so it started off with in the classroom setting, really. And then when I progressed to pitching the idea, I was talking to a lot of people within the healthcare industry on campus. So there were like clinics, there were other private clinics in town that I spoke to, that I physically went there to their office and sat down with the nurses and the doctors and asked them with whatever time that they could spare me. Sometimes they just brushed me off. Some of them said, okay, you can talk. And I asked them, why aren't you using technology? And then after that, I gather all this information. Social media was another place that I looked for to do market research. LinkedIn is very, very useful for me. And people on LinkedIn, in my opinion, are very receptive. So if you were to send them, if you don't know them and you connect with them and then you send them a nice message saying that this is what you're doing, I'm not saying 100% are going to get back to you, but I would say about 70% will get back to you and be like, yes, I'm willing to talk to you about things. You just have to make the effort to go connect with them. And that's actually the hardest part. So you need to do that. You need to make that effort to go to them and talk to them. Conferences, networking, entrepreneurial summits, events like this one, your colleagues are so important. The teaching staff here, for example, is another point of market research for myself to validate the idea that I had, and I kind of used the current context that I have, and then this will always happen, I promise you, that whoever you connect with will be like, I know somebody else. And then you go to that person and, oh, I know somebody else. And you just kind of have to keep going, even though you just feel like, oh, this is so boring, market research is so boring. It tends to get very monotonous after a while because you're going to get a lot of no's. I don't have really no time to talk to you, but you have to keep it going. And so these are, it's not so much about, the tools are out there for you to use. Social media is very good. Your colleagues and your teaching staff, the university is a very good resource. So you have to be very organized about it and then kind of take the step forward and stick to your progress.
Great.
Question is for David. What would you say is the biggest lesson you took from the New Zealand journey, and have you thought of giving it a shot again, maybe in another context?
Okay. Did he call it a New Zealand jolly? Or
Yeah, it's
a journey. Journey. Okay. It was a complete jolly. Having faith in yourself, but realizing you can't do it all yourself. So I'm going to sit here and say, I've got a few silver hairs. I know I need a broader team. And I had all these grand visions of how I could do stuff myself. And I think that I slowly got diluted away a little bit. Sometimes you need to lead. Sometimes somebody has to stand up and grab the initiative or grab the room or whatever it might be. Absolutely, though, you're reliant, certainly for us, hundreds of different people in different parts of the planet. And that was a great learning experience for me. And then the corollary to what I said earlier on was about the importance of remembering what your actual personal priorities are. So for me, not that I needed reminding, the family, the listening to the right people around you, realizing who you can trust, finding that sort of ecosystem that I knew I could do it again in. Absolutely, I'd love to do it again. My wife has actually, you need to meet Mrs. Park at some point. She's very bossy. She's banned me from moving offshore for at least the next 10 years. So the UK's stuck with me, I'm afraid, for a wee while. Doesn't mean I can't go on jollies, so if anybody fancies a trip somewhere, give us a call. But no, of course I'll do it again. And I've done, the business I did after this was in a different sector and a failing business. So I didn't get to select the team. It was a sector I knew nothing about, and it was losing 6 figures a week. So different challenges. I love the startup. I'm doing a startup, just myself and my wife at the moment. Very brave. We know who wears the trousers. But we've got different things in life. I was saying earlier on, we're home educating our kids. We've got a plan of, let's try and wind things back, just keep to the two of us. Our strategy at the moment is not to grow. We've got some targets around income. We've got some targets of what we'd like to do to live a certain type of life. But our priority at the moment for the next few years is the family. And I'm very open about that. I'm very happy with that. This is me smiling. And so will I be doing something different in 5 or 10 years' time? Absolutely. Do I know what it is or where it is? No. And that's really cool. I mean, seriously, I get excited about this. The planet is an amazing place at times. There will be opportunities out there. I will be doing something. Hopefully my wife's still talking to me. Yeah. Okay? So trust yourselves. Give it a go. It's a fun world.
Great. Okay, so time's against us now, and I'm just going to explain what's going to come next. But if you wouldn't mind me joining Sarah and David, joining me in thanking them for a candid account. So.